Good morning. Morning, Indira, Amish, Jamunajaya.
Good morning.
Good morning. Indira, where are you?
I'm still in Brooklyn.
Hmm?
Where are you?
I'm in Manhattan.
Ooh, fancy.
If you're around tomorrow morning,
Where are you doing
Sangha
it?
at Karuna's.
Oh, yeah. Oh, great. I need to give him back his Tupperware.
Okay, good. It's a good excuse if it's possible. Good to see you. Andrea, welcome. I have no cute stories of Jai today. I'm sorry. But we shall begin. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ganati Mirandasya Kananjanam Chalaka Chakshun Militam Hina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pricharine Nirvishesha Shunyavad Pasita Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhisya Kripa Sindhube Vichapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hari Om Tat Sat. We're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, new chapter, chapter 13, text 1 through 3. Shri Sukha Uvacha Nimi Ikshvaku Tannayo Vashishtam Avitardvijam Arabaya Satram Sopyaha Sakrena Pragritosmi Bo. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, after beginning sacrifices, Maharaj Nimi, the son of Ikshvaku, requested the great sage Vishista to take the post of chief priest. At that time, Vishista replied, "My dear Maharaj Nimi, I have already accepted the same post in a sacrifice begun by Lord Indra. I'm already doing that same service. Tam nirvatat agam siyami tavan mam pratipalaya tushnim asid griha patti sopindra yaksa karo makam. I shall return here after finishing the yajna for Indra. Kindly wait for me until then." Maharaj Nimi remained silent. Ooh. And Vashista began to perform the sacrifice for Lord Indra. So dramatic. Bhagavatam is so beautifully dramatic. Nimischalam idam vidivan satram aribatatmavan ritva gibir aparastavan nagamadhyavata guru. Maharaj Nimi, being a self-realized soul, considered that this life is flickering. Therefore, instead of waiting long for Vashista, he began performing the sacrifice with other priests. Purport, Janaka Pandit says, Sariram Shanam Shana Vidvamsi Kalpanta Stayano Guna. During the duration of one's life in the material world may end at any moment. But if within this life one does something worthy, that qualification is depicted in history eternally. Here is a great personality, Maharaj Nimi, who knew this fact. In the human form of life, one should perform activities in such a way that at the end, he goes back home, back to Godhead. This is self-realization. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. so dramatic. He keeps silent. Maharaj Nimi keeps silent with his Guru Maharaj there. His Guru Maharaj says, actually, I'm performing another sacrifice. Just hold on. Hold your horses one moment and I'll be back. I've got a sacrifice to do. Same thing, I'm a chief priest. I've been appointed chief priest for King Indra. We'll find out later what that entails and what goes on there and how all these amazing personalities are getting together. I find it so compelling to read these sections now. When you first time going through, it's just a bunch of list of names. This person begot this person, begot this person, begot this person. Boring. And then you start to understand, wait a minute, this is it. We're talking about, we get bent out of shape about the cabinet in Congress and who got appointed which president for a short 4-year term. And now we're talking about personalities who are still imperceptible to perhaps are materialized, but are still here and still affecting us in so many ways. And so Vashishtha's got seva, he's got duties to do with Indra. We'll see how this plays out later. And we see the power of these very empowered demigods in this chapter specifically as they churn. They're going to bring life back to a quote unquote dead body. And because they can do that type of stuff. It's amazing, actually, the potency that these personalities carry. And so therefore, in perhaps a more immature view, you could say, we'll see in a little bit how Vashishtha seems very materially motivated and how we can talk bad about Vashishtha, but I don't want to go that road because who am I to talk about Vashishtha? He educated Lord Rama. But the wonderful thing is we can glorify Maharaj Nimi here because he's already self-realized and he understands the purpose of life. We get goosebumps and chills. Anybody watch movies? Anybody want to admit that? Sangha. You watch a movie. One of my favorite movies of all time is Gladiator. If you've ever seen Gladiator with Russell Crowe, it's very, very good. It's a long movie. It's a whole scene. It's a whole story. It's, riches to rags to riches. The power struggles are there. Very, very wonderful film. Cinema, as Prabhupada would say. Cinema. Picture houses. Go to the picture house and see these things. And there's a scene in there at the end where the main character says something along the lines of what we do now echoes in eternity. And you hear it and tears usually flow from the eyes if you're in the right state of mind, because there's truth to it. And so we know actually that what we do now echoes in eternity. But here we find, I get a strong sense of the urgency of Prabhupada in his purport, because of, if we think about the period of life that Srila Prabhupada was in at this point, 9th canto, translating the 9th canto, this is towards the later part of his manifest pastimes. And he says something just so simple. He quotes, of course, he does the proper thing. He quotes Chanakya Pandit, but he's living this. So it's very potent. He says anything that somebody does that's worthy, his qualification is depicted in history eternally. So therefore, we get excited as devotees of Krishna, as followers of Prabhupada, we get excited to speak the glories of someone like a Srila Prabhupada, because this person is worthy. This person's, what they've done, what they've accomplished is not a material thing. What they've accomplished is basically, it's marked for all eternity. It's not just 108 temples. It's not just 80, 90 books. This is not just bringing the holy name across this planet. These are worthy things that he did. And what I like to do in purports like this is I like to follow, in one sense, try to follow a thread of Srila Prabhupada. And one thing that jumped out to me is when he says it's depicted in history eternally, because it's not about the body. And this is just something that we have to hear again and again and again and again and again, because at best we get a lot of information. We get a lot of good information about how to take care of the body. We get, sleep better. You can get an aura ring now. An aura ring is something that I don't have one because they cost a lot of money, but you can put it, it's a ring that you put on your finger and it tracks your sleep. And then you can know, do I have deep sleep? Do I have not deep sleep? How am I doing with all of this stuff? And we get a lot of information about sleep, what we should eat, how we should exercise better, and all of these things. I actually sent a message to Arjuna Prabhu yesterday, just appreciating him. If you're close to Arjuna Prabhu at all, you get inundated with texts because he's just always reading Prabhupada's books and sending them. And it's a joy to receive them, because what is sent is divya gyan, right? Knowledge, divine knowledge, transcendental knowledge. And it's from the Guru Puja that we sing, divya gyan riddhe prokashito. And what does it do? The verse before that, prema bhakti yaha hoiti avidya vinyasayate, prema bhakti, it says, well, the spiritual master gives prema bhakti. He's going to take away the avidya, the ignorance that we have, that I don't know where Andrea is, but that she's a New Yorker, she's a New Jerseyer, or she's a whatever, India is a Brooklyner, or potentially a Colorado or whatever it may be. I don't know. Where are you, Andrea? Uh-oh, she's going to put it in the chat. I know it. I could see her fingers there. Gainesville. She's a Floridian. She's a Floridian. That's just who she is. Or whatever designation that's there. Divya Gyan says, actually, anyway, these are so temporary things. And that's important to understand, because that's what the spiritual master gives. And a lot of times we look to the spiritual master to give us information on everything. But the spiritual master, primarily, their duty, their job is to give divya gyan, is to help us, is to lift us out of this mundane concept of who we are, who we've identified with. And it requires someone who's very strong to be able to do that. Someone who's very fixed to be able to do that. And that's what qualifies somebody. If they actually have this divya gyan, they're off of the bodily platform, then they're a great soul. They're a Mahatma. So we need these Mahatmas to do that. So Maharaj Nimi he's a Mahatma. He's off of this platform. He's already understood this. And he says, actually, I'm not going to waste time. Now, there's the whole thing that goes on here between the spiritual master, and there's some cursing that's going to happen in a few verses. But I won't get into that. Like I said, I want to stay focused on Maharaj Nimi, he's a great soul, and his point, or his example, is so powerful. And again, a lot of times we have to catch these things instead of just being taught them. You catch, by the association of these Mahatmas, you catch, what does it look like? Before you make it, if you're an architect and you need to make plans and drawings, you make a 3D rendering of what the space is going to look like. What does it look like in this world to live as if you're not the body? What does it look like? And that's why we get the association of great souls, and we see that, and then we get excited and we can see, oh, it is possible. So that's what Mahatmas do. That's what spiritual masters do. They give us divya gyan, and it's quite rare. It's very, very rare to get that association. It's very, very rare to come into contact with someone like that. And it's very rare that somebody, in one sense, does something, as is said in the purport here, does something or lives in such a way that they display this. And that display is echoed in history eternally. Somebody's living as that spirit. And so that's why on a Thursday night, we come together at the Bhakti Center. We had an amazing kirtan last night. Wow. There was, yeah, as they say, it was like old times. It was really packed and loud, and that yagya is eternally, it's eternally there, that sacrifice, because it was for the pleasure of Krishna, and therefore it's something that is worthy of praise. It's something that's worthy of that. Now, when we watch somebody like a Srila Prabhupada's life, we see the whole thing is worthy of, as Arjuna Prabhu normally says, he says, I just want to give I want to give Prabhupada every single award that's there. Just give him all the awards. And just give him every award that's there. Give him an Oscar, give him a Tony, just give him every award. Give him all the gold medals, give him all of that stuff, because this is something that his life it's worthy of that. So who is that type of person? Srila Prabhupada, I'm reading this book. Has anybody gotten this book yet? I'll Build You a Temple, the Juhu story.
Yes, I started it. It's great.
You read it?
No, I haven't started it, but I've heard it's great.
Oh, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's one section. Thank you, Indira. It's one section of Srila Prabhupada's pastimes, but the whole thing is worthy of telling again and again and again. The struggles, the fight, and how he did it and who he did it for. But what we see is that this person is truly a Mahatma. He's a great soul. So I wanted to read a little bit from the Bhagavad Gita. What is a Mahatma? What does that mean? Andre, did you want me to read from the book a little bit? I saw your face. All right, I'll read a little bit from the book. But this is really sweet. Actually, this is something very interesting, because we're going to see actually the spiritual master gets upset with his disciple here in a little bit. So I'll read this part because I just opened up to a random page. So I'll read a little bit of this. This is what happens if the spiritual master gets angry with you. Okay, so they're in Juhu. This is towards the very end, it looks like. Yeah, preaching in Prayag and Bombay. So this is January to September 1977. So this is Srila Prabhupada was winding down his manifest pastimes. He was very physically, the body was not cooperating. And so they gave him a residence, and he said, very good. Now just let me do my translation work and basically just be quiet. I need the people that were around me, just be quiet. And there was a few devotees that were there, and there was Nava Yogendra Swami who was there, and he was serving Prabhupada Prasad. And Prabhupada, because he wanted to regulate his life, I mean, these are simple things. Like you can, with a Mahatma, you can figure out, or you can at least see how, even the simple thing of how to take care of your health, you can see that. So Prabhupada wanted to regulate his because he knew regulation improves health. So every day at 1 p.m., he would have his lunch. So he was always ready to ring the bell if it was 1:01. Where is the lunch? So now Yogendra was there at 12:59, and he runs into the room right at 1 o'clock. Prabhupada says, very good. And when something in the service went wrong, I'm reading now, and Prabhupada became angry, Nava Yogendra wasn't sure how to respond. And I love it. So bold. He asked the question. He says, Prabhupada, when you get angry with us, what should we do? How should we feel? What should we think? Srila Prabhupada, if the spiritual master is angry with you, you should be very pleased. It means that he's attending to you. You should feel happy. You should understand that your spiritual master cares for you. His getting angry with you means he's looking after you. He is concerned about your spiritual progress. He says, when my Guru Maharaj became angry with me, we were very pleased. There are so many hundreds and thousands of people in the streets, but no one is looking after them. But if the spiritual master becomes angry with the disciple, that is his mercy on that person. If someone is walking down the street and doing some nonsense, no one will check him. So many people are doing so much nonsense, but nobody's checking them. But if someone is checked, if a disciple is checked by a spiritual master, this is to his eternal benefit. So many people in the material world are doing all kinds of nonsense. Is there anybody checking them, correcting them? No. So when the spiritual master gets angry at the disciple, it is the mercy of Krishna on that soul. So that was just something there. And Navayogendra reflected on what he had said. He said his anger was only for a rectification. In the material world, people get angry, but Prabhupada's anger was not like theirs. He was pure. He knew the value of this human life and this human form of life for self-realization. We should not waste even a second. We should cultivate Krishna consciousness all the time. If he saw that his disciples were not acting properly, he would get angry for their rectification. So this is just, there's this whole text is filled with so many of these. And this is what a Mahatma, a great soul, is. And I wanted to read a little bit about these Mahatmas, because we see this word a lot in the Bhagavad Gita. And we see it here in chapter 7, Mahatma, you can see down here, Mahatma Sudurlabham. So what are these great souls like? Well, after many births and deaths, he who's actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes. Such a great soul is very rare. Again, in the beginning of our Krishna consciousness, we feel, well, I'm obviously a Mahatma because I've surrendered. And then later on, we think, well, this may take many, many births. Like, oops, maybe I'm not so surrendered. But these moments of surrender are all worthy of, they're actually all worthy, as we read in our last purport, they're all worthy, they're very glorious. These moments of surrender that come by the mercy of Krishna, by the mercy of the spiritual master. They're powerful. In the beginning of spiritual realization, Prabhupada says, when one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there is always going to be some leaning towards impersonalism. Let me just renounce. Let me just let go. Let me just merge. Let me just end this suffering. But when one is further advanced, you can understand there are activities in spiritual life and that these activities are devotional service. So doing this, realizing this, he becomes attached to Krishna, and then he surrenders to him. And as he becomes attached to Krishna and he surrenders to him, at that time, one can understand that Lord's Krishna mercy is everything. Hence, even just what we read, right? The spiritual master getting angry, this is some mercy that's flowing down. Somebody's correcting, somebody's checking. And sometimes we don't get it directly from our spiritual master. Maybe some of you have experienced this. You've been corrected by devotees. And you go, oh, they don't have any right to do this to me. But actually, it's also, there's some mercy. Or what to speak of devotees, just any living being, any living entity. When I got off the train, I flew into Newark, and I got off the train and I got on the city bike. It was a very early morning. Vera and I flew here 7 a.m. from Jacksonville. So we were up at 3, and I got in and I got on the city bike at about 10 o'clock at Penn Station. And I got on the city bike. So, I mean, you get from Florida to here, it's just such a quick thing. It's 10 o'clock. It's not even noon and you're here. But I'm a little bit tired. So I'm on the city bike, and you got to be sharp on these city bikes. You got to be awake. And here I was going by Union Square. And in Union Square, on one side, there's a bike lane that goes this way and a bike lane that goes this way. It's just for a short time. And there was a truck. There was a big truck where the farmer's market is. And I was trying to read, what does it say? It said something about a tennis truck or something. I'm looking over, and I got the New York welcome. The first words that were given to me this trip were, they were choice 4-letter words. And I thought, man, but he ended with buddy. It was loud and forceful, but then he ended with buddy. And I just said, man, it just woke me up. And I thought, Krishna, what am I supposed to learn from that? And I didn't know that this was going to be the flow of this, but I did see that when I was reading some of these things, I was thinking, actually, all of this is coming to purify. And even he was coming to, in a nice way, to say, wake up, get sharp. You pay attention. Actually, you can't be spaced out riding a city bike in New York. You got to be awake. You got to be alive. So a great soul realizes the material world is a reflection of all of these varieties. And he realizes that everything there is in relationship with Krishna. And he thinks of everything in relationship to Krishna. So this is the symptoms of a great soul. And right before that, we see that those that are in knowledge are always engaged in pure devotional service. And they become very close to Krishna. So that's why it's so nice to read a text like this, I'll build you a temple, or any of these leelas of Srila Prabhupada, because you just see this is what it looks like for somebody to always be engaged. And it gives inspiration, it gives joy, it gives hope. This is what it looks like. It's not so far away. This is just a few years previous. It gives faith and hope just to hear his stories. Because this is what it looks like when somebody's dear to Krishna. This is what it looks like when somebody's always engaged. This is what a Mahatma looks like Maharaj Nimi, who was perfectly self-realized. You're going to take how long? You're going to go and do it. And these were long sacrifices. This wasn't just like we do. 2 hours, you sit at a wedding, right? You think, oh my gosh, how long is this going to go on for? 2 hours. He was going to be gone for perhaps celestial years because he had to perform these sacrifices. So Maharaj Nimi's like, all right, well, let me do this. Let me just move forward because I don't want to waste a precious moment. The vision that's required to see that is that the Lord is everywhere. And here's a nice verse from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, text 40. Obeisances to you from the front, from behind, from all sides. Arjuna is saying this. You're the master of limitless might. You're all pervading, and thus you're everything. So Arjuna is having this experience that, wow, he's everywhere. And he's also the source of all of these wonderful personalities, because we're going to read in the next few chapters as well, we're going to read a lot of these different personalities that are attending to us right now. Every one of us is affected by these demigods in our own way. The sun, the moon, Mars, all of these different personalities. Brihaspati, we're going to read about Brihaspati. We're going to read about Soma, the moon god. We're going to read about all these personalities soon. And here's the conclusion. They're so great. They're so powerful. And here's the conclusion Arjuna's having. Whoever comes to you, even if you be a demigod, is created by you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's such a beautiful vision that the Mahatmas carry, because they see everything emanating from the Lord. They see all of it, and it doesn't bewilder them. And that's why there can be that equanimity. That's why there can be that equipoise nature in these great souls that we find. We find that no matter what, there's so much tolerance. No matter what, there's so much compassion, because they're seeing that the fluctuations of the gunas, the fluctuations of the modes of nature are always going on. And as these fluctuations always go on, one just has to learn to tolerate these things and cultivate the inner life, right? The inner joy, the inner life. I was texting with Arjun yesterday because I was just appreciating the inner life that manifests through it's only in Kali Yuga in 2021. The inner life manifests through text messages. It manifests always, but it can manifest through text messages. And the inner life that's cultivated from the sharing of this katha, because Prabhupada would always say we should be constantly engaged in kirtan. And sometimes people say, well, that means you should always be chanting Hare Krishna, or you should always be out on the streets chanting. Kirtan's also just the glorification of these wonderful great souls, or the passing on of the words of these great souls as we're stuck in our day-to-day job, making sure that we're getting things done, things checked off the list, to just receive transcendental knowledge, as we talked about at the beginning, divya gyan, to hear about, by the way, you may be focused on that spreadsheet, but it's time to take just a moment, it's not long, and remember that you are an eternal fragmental part of the Supreme Lord, and Krishna loves you, and it's just so important. And so I was appreciating the inner life that's been cultivated by these great souls, and Arjuna Prabhu is a guiding light in my life in that way. And so I'm so grateful for that, because that's what it takes, right? We have to see the example, and then we also have to develop that inner life, that this is really the jam. And one of the great benedictions that we're all receiving, or most of us on here, I can see, let's see, yeah, most of us on here are receiving, is still we still have the amazing opportunity to associate with these personal associates of Srila Prabhupada, who just get it, despite potentially many quirks, who just get the goal of life, like what it is, because they in one sense, they were so close to this personality, this shining, speak about the moon and the sun, this shining personality who came, and as George Harrison said, here comes the sun, do 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 do, right? This is it. This is the song of Prabhupada, who just lit up their life, and then just at least gave this is the goal. And so we get so lucky to have their association and help to remind us what is the actual goal. And by the way, this is just my humble speculation, but I can't not see it going this way with the Srila Prabhupada. So forgive me, because I know this is being recorded, but it's just because I grew up in a Christian background with the New Testament. And when you start to understand the New Testament, you start to see, well, what was this book all about? And you see the New Testament is this book of stories of an amazing personality who came to give light, who came to share what is the goal of life. And a lot of these stories actually are second hand. They heard through somebody else. This is what I heard about, and they could be hundreds of years away. And so a text like this, what is that? What is that book actually? What are all of these amazing chasing rhinos and blazing sadhus and all of these, and the Lilamrita? What is that book? What are these texts actually? And how edifying and uplifting and potent are they? I leave that to you, but you can probably understand my conclusion just by how I set it up. These are not ordinary. And when we read them, definitely mercy and grace is awaiting our, all we have to do is just open the book and it's already flowing. So those are a few thoughts, humble thoughts on these texts. Maharaj Nimi knows the goal of life. He understands it. Chanaka Pandit reassures us. Srila Prabhupada lives it, displays it, and lives a life in such a way that it's going to be depicted in history eternally. Hari Om Tat Sat. Any thoughts, questions, or reflections on anything?
Hari Bol Jai.
Hari Bol Jamuna Jaya.
Thank you so much for class. I just had to hop in to say, so there are so many points that resonated with me today. When that book, Danyadhara Maharaj has been quoting that book so often lately. He loves that book, so he pulled it up. That was so great. And then you quoted 1140, which is literally, I say that verse every morning when I get up and I peek my head outside, I'm facing to the front and the side. So when you said 1140,
Wow.
my smile just like, oh, he's saying my verse.
It's your verse. Obeisances to you, to the front, from behind, from all sides.
From all sides. Oh, found his power.
Wow.
I love that verse. So when you said it, but then the point about that there's so few people actually looking out for us, and you're with the city bike. I ride my bike all the time. And at the beginning, I remember people bonking their horns when I'm in the bike lane, used to piss me off. But then,
Yeah.
but then I see they're saying, hey, I see you. I don't want to run into you. I see you. And it is such the same way as like the spiritual master and a teacher getting that. I see you. I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want you to go the wrong way. So I love that you made that analogy, because whenever I hear a horn honk now, I think they're seeing me. They don't want me to be hurt. And in the same way, any correction is a spiritual master teacher saying, I see you. I don't want you to go on the wrong road. I don't want you to be hurt. So thank you for making those points so beautifully. So.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for realizing them. That's it, right? There is that loving correction. I remember, I think it's in the journey within, as it talks a little bit about even karma and how there's nothing wrong with it. It's the Invisalign. Have you seen this Invisalign things that realign your teeth? It's the invisible. It's the Invisalign of our lives, right? It's Krishna's mercy. And that's why devotees, we always say it's Krishna's mercy. But we got to get in line, right? It's not that the guy just honks at you. It's like, oh, good point. I better be more careful. It's not just, oh God, there's another honk. It's, I better get on this side, or I better pay attention. It's a good point, Chamunajai. Any other thoughts or reflections?
Hare Krishna, Jai Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I just wanted to say that just now when you said karma is the Invisalign of our life, Paul, my husband, died.
It was fantastic.
That's so on point, because I feel like a lot of times we have this love-hate relationship with the idea of karma. Like we understand it, but we feel like it's just doing things to us, and there's nothing that we can do to it. But the idea of, like, with Invisalign, you have to choose to align yourself. And we did choose to come to the material world. So in doing so, we kind of signed up for Invisalign. And, and sometimes you get so used to things. Like, I mean, I wear a mouth guard to go to sleep that you forget that it's there. But when something starts hurting, when you get that correction, then you're like, oh yeah, that's there. And then you have to try to remember, like, why is that in my mouth? Why is karma coming into my life? And then we have the instruction manuals via the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and then maybe the 1-800 number where you call for customer services, the great Mahatmas and the gurus and the Shiksha gurus and the Diksha gurus in our life. So anyway, just keep going with that. You're doing great.
Oh, it's perfect. No, you keep going with it. That was amazing. That was, you brought in a whole nother level of Invisalign there. It's true. I've never had it, but it's true. It probably starts to hurt, huh? And then that's the experience of karma. Yeah, it's a great point. And then how do we call? How do we understand? Good point. Thank you. Any other thoughts or reflections? Anybody like to share?
Well, I just like to share the whole idea of the guru, how Prabhupada said you should think about it when I get upset with you, that I care about you. And I had a friend who was telling me a story about her incident she had with her guru years ago, like in the 90s when we were all very young. And it really stayed with her when he corrected her, but in a personal, like, oh, I don't think he likes me so much way. And I am dying to tell her this now. Like, I'm going
call
to call her after this class and say, oh, no, this is it, right?
It's page 487 in this book.
Okay, thank you.
No, it's a great point. Actually, I will share, since we still have a little time, I will share, Indira, if you'll allow me. I'll share a story where your Guru Maharaj corrected me. Can I share that?
Oh, I would love it, because I've only heard sweet corrections from him, so he was never very heavy.
And this is why it completely bewildered me.
He loved you.
Yeah, he heavied me out. And I didn't understand it, but I do now. So he so I was at a house, and I was lucky enough to give him a massage. This is Bhakti True. So I was lucky enough to give him a massage, and I gave him this massage. And of course, he's so much more cultured than me. I'm giving an Ayurvedic massage. He's training me actually how to do it practically. But anyway, and he liked it. So he said, come back. And so I came back the next day. And so I came back the next day and did the same thing. And he was happy. But there was a meal that was going to happen after. And he says, and for this time, he says, will you stay for lunch? And I said, oh, yes, because I had a service at the Bhakti Center, which at that time we were all living in the 4th floor, Jam Dhyanavir, and we would host people for lunch sometimes. And so I said, yeah, but I was a little hesitant. And he said, no, please. I said, okay, no problem. Yes, definitely. And so then, but it was my duty at the Bhakti Center that lunch particularly, I had to welcome the guests and I had to make sure that lunch was prepared and I didn't want to leave it to them. So I was a little nervous, but I thought, okay, well, we'll have lunch early and then I'll run back really quick. It was on the west side. And so I had to get to the Lower East Side. So I'm there and then I'm asking the cooks and when is this lunch gonna happen? And they're like, oh, very, very soon. I said, okay, very good. And let's just say, I don't remember the timing, but let's just say we were having lunch at 1 and it was already 12 and the lunch wasn't ready yet. So I'm thinking, oh, this is gonna get bad. And then it got to 12:30 and I'm completely sweating at this point. And they kept saying, yes, it is almost done. It is almost done. And I'm sweating because I know I have 5 minutes at this lunch. I'm going to have to break out early and I'm just going to sprint there. I need to go. And so I'm completely uncomfortable. And then now it's 12:35, 12:40. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be late. And I'm trying to text the crew, let them know that I'm going to be late. And I don't want this to be a problem. And I had mentioned who it was. I had mentioned who was coming over to, and at that point I said, there's a guest coming over, I'm going to have to go. So I had mentioned to Bhakti True Maharaj who it was, and he knew this person. And so I just mentioned this is who was coming over, and but I just want to let you know, like I'm supposed to meet with him. And he said, no. And this is Indira. He says, no, just stay. And I thought, what do you mean? Just like, it's 12:45. I got to be there at 1. Like, what do you mean? Just stay? No, just stay. So I'm thinking, this is a great soul. He knows more than me. But why is he saying just stay? Because he's the king of culture. He's the king of culture. He's the king of sweet. Like, why is he saying just stay? And so now we're at least sitting at the table, but it's 12:55. And I'm sweating. I am so amazingly not present that you can't even understand it. I'm sitting next to him and I'm so not present. And there's a guest there and the guest keeps asking him, what was it like to cook for Prabhupada? And it's 1 o'clock now and I blew it. And I'm going into the bathroom. I'm calling Vera. I'm saying, listen, I'm late. I don't know what's going on. And I'm getting the sauce from both sides now, right? You're late. What the heck are you late for? What's your problem? And then, I don't know, I'm so immature. I'm so whatever. I don't know what's going on. I'm literally almost in tears. I'm not even kidding you. And then, but I go back out there and then they start serving. It's 1:30 now. And they started serving, what are they artichokes where you have to eat one? Is that what those are, artichokes? You know what I'm talking about? Where you just have to, artichoke hearts. A dish that you have to eat one at a time and dip. You can't fastly eat an artichoke, right? So I'm like this. I'm trying to fastly eat this artichoke and that's the first part of the meal. And I'm just thinking, get this thing over with. And the guest keeps asking him, can you please tell us the pastimes of you cooking for Prabhupada. And I'm thinking, I don't want to hear these pastimes. I need to go, even though they're the most beautiful pastimes. And he's looking at me and he knows, I mean, Bhakti Trumaraj, he gets it. He sees I am a distressed fool. And I just said, Maharaj, I really have to leave. It's like 1:45. I really have to go right now. And he says, stay. I said, how are you saying stay? In my mind, I didn't say that, but in my mind, I think I can't understand. You're seeing the distress on my face. You're seeing the distress in my heart. How are you telling me to stay right now? So it's 2:00 and I'm thinking, like I've ruined it at the house. There's going to be a problem. I've ruined it with the guests. There's going to be a problem. Bhakti Shumraj probably thinks I'm just crazy at this point because he sees I'm not present and it's just a problem. And I go to him one more time in the middle and I say, Maharaj, I really need to go. I really need to leave. And he looks at me and he says, just stay and finish the meal. And it was heavy. And I thought, oh my God, okay, I have to surrender at this point. So I surrendered, I stayed, the meal's there, the sweet comes out. The second the sweet is finished, I look at him and he says, basically with his eyes, get out of here, right? Like, fine, if you need to go, just go. And I'm like, oh, and I'm walking down in little humble tears are flowing from my eyes because I'm thinking, I've offended everybody. This is a problem. I feel sick to my stomach because I ate so fast and I'm in a taxi cab trying to sprint down there. I get down there. The guest was a little bit late, but they were already there. The family hated me because they had to do my duty. So, but I sit down. Now I'm in meal number 2. And I sit down for the meal. And the person, he knew this person. Bhakti Shumraj knew this person. And as I sit down for the meal, it was unbelievable. The person started to talk badly about so many Vaishnavas. It was absolutely, I've never experienced it in my life. None of us, we kept looking at each other saying, what are we supposed to do? Like, are we supposed to kick this person out? Blasphemy, nasty words. And we couldn't, I was like, what is going on? And of course, at that moment, I understood this is a Mahatma. This is a great soul. He understood the whole situation even before I couldn't, because he knew the person. And so it was such a learning lesson that, yeah, when there's great souls. There's us and there's great souls. You know what I mean? Just soften into them. Just let them guide you, even if it doesn't make sense. Let that Invisalign, let the karma, let it burn. It just doesn't make sense. But there, for your benefit, because I had done a little bit of service, there was affection, and he was protecting me, and I should take that shelter because he was willing to give that. So that was a heavy story, and I couldn't. That was the other aspect of it. I couldn't believe that he was being heavy with me because I've never heard that in any Leela, and I'm not even close with him. Do you know what I mean? In that sense, I've seen him twice. But because this is what great souls do, they love the soul. A foolish guy like me, they love the soul and they want to help the soul. And of all of the things to experience, he didn't want me to experience what somehow he could understand was going to happen, because it's poison. It took us a long time to process that situation. And with that person, it was really, anyway, it became a thing. And he just didn't want that poison to go in the heart. And so that was his grace upon me. So sorry, I was just wanted to share that story. Was that okay, Indira?
That's an amazing story. Thank you so much. I will share it with his disciples. I mean, not your name or anything, but seriously, that's a great story. It really just brings out, like you said, the Mahatma, right? The understanding far beyond what we understand.
Far beyond. Thank you. And as Prabhupada's saying, the love that's there. I couldn't process the love. And that's what, that's my failing. I couldn't process the love. So thank you so much for listening. And yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you all so much.